77 WABC and Bergen Newbridge Medical Center honor the life of legendary broadcaster and our friend, Ernie Anastas.
Hi, it's Ernie Anastas. You know, your thoughts can affect how you feel. Bergen Newbridge Medical Center is the largest hospital in New Jersey, providing comprehensive, equitable, compassionate, and high-quality emergency inpatient and outpatient medical care, plus mental health services and substance use disorder treatment. The Bergen Newbridge team can address your total health needs in one convenient location. Call 201-225-7130 for an appointment or newbridgehealth.org.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
In the squadron, they called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, hello. How was Mother's Day and all the moms? Was it good? A lot of pressure on that day. I can't say it was the best day. Yeah, I wish my mom happy Mother's Day. She's in Florida. We did something nice last week. And then for my wife, you know, it's we had a brunch, but guess what? She did most of the cooking. Okay, what the hell do I know? I can't cook that stuff. I don't know how to set the table. You know, I mean, I know how to set the table, but I don't know how to set the table for guests. And it was very nice, but she did way too much of the work, you know. And I felt a little bit. I don't know. I think I should have done more. I could have made it nicer. I could have done something, but sometimes I just don't know if I'm. I don't think I'm qualified. I just don't think I'm qualified. You know. And I don't have those the feminine niceties and the little touches that you need to pull off a really great Mother's Day. I mean, I could get her a gift, and I got her a little something, but you know, and we're saving for something. So every time I buy something, it's like, why the hell did you buy this? And especially if I buy something that you know wasn't on her list, it's problematic. You know, you guys have that problem? I mean, she's great. She's very responsible. She's great with money. She's not extravagant or irresponsible by any means. But when I buy something, I feel like I need permission because we're in austerity mode. You know, we got bills. Everybody's got bills. And but when it comes time to celebrate, you know, it's we kind of have moved on from that. But I always feel a little bit of guilt. You know, I feel guilt about that. Do you? Carlos, is your mom around? Do they have Mother's Day in Greece? Not really, kinda. A lot of the foreign countries, you know, they don't really. It's more of a Hallmark thing. It's more of a. Anyway, you gotta celebrate your wife and mother. I actually have this idea, and I think it's going to take off. One of these days, it's going to become a thing. That birthdays, when you think about birthdays, we got it all wrong. It's all about celebrating the birth of the person, and then the person gets a birthday party. You think about getting born. You know, you didn't do anything to get born. You were along for the ride, literally. But what about our mom and dad, and especially our mothers, what they went through, the physical pain that they had to go through, not just on delivery day, but, you know, walking around like that for a long time. That's hard. That's tough. That's difficult. Just the lumbering around, this and that is so painful. Anyway, thank you. President Trump spoke for a little bit about drug prices and a bunch of other things, and that was good. But I'd like to get the latest on the Iran situation, just because I'm curious, not because it's the worst thing that ever happened. I just pointed out in the last hour, Afghanistan went on for 20 years. No sense of urgency to bring that war to a close. Iraq went on for 11 years. No sense of urgency to bring that thing to a close, right? Everybody was content with it. I never heard anything about peace negotiations or talks. The only thing I remember about Afghanistan and peace negotiations is that they were angry at President Trump for having peace negotiations. He actually had peace negotiations with the Taliban at, where the hell was it? Camp David. And as somebody once observed, you don't make peace with your friends. You make peace with your enemies. They're like, how could he do such a thing? I don't know. I thought it was, peace. All we are saying is give peace a chance, right? Anyway, this war must come to a close. We're not even shooting. Nobody is even shooting at each other right now. Remember that. You got President Trump from the Oval? Go ahead.
For the time being, the ceasefire remains in place?
It's unbelievably weak, I would say. I would call it the weakest right now. After reading that piece of garbage they sent us, I didn't even finish reading it. I said, I'm not going to waste my time reading it. I would say it's one of the weakest right now. It's on life support. They understand. These are all medical people. Dr. Oz, life support is not a good thing. Do you agree?
Bad prognostic.
I would say the ceasefire is on massive life support, where the doctor walks in and says, sir, your loved one has approximately a 1% chance of living.
Whoa, life support. Well, just about every expert I talked to since this thing started, Blaine Holt and the rest, I mean, since this thing started, by this thing I mean the ceasefire, is that at some point we'd be dropping bombs again. Doesn't mean it's hopeless, doesn't mean, this war will come in for a landing sooner or later, but we would have to most likely go to another period of bomb dropping, okay? All right, give me a little bit more if we got it.
For the time being, the ceasefire remains in place?
What?
For the time being, the ceasefire remains in place?
It's unbelievably weak.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's pretty much the same thing. Unbelievably weak. It's on life support. You have a 1% chance of seeing your loved one again. Americans exposed to hantavirus are being monitored, and I guess they're being brought back to quarantine facilities. One is in Omaha, Nebraska. I kind of remember this during COVID. Anybody remember COVID? They brought them back and they put them in these special facilities for a little while. Back when we were thought maybe, just maybe, we could keep it outside the country. That was a pipe dream, of course. Still haven't gotten to the bottom of that. Oh, here's something else. When President Trump, I just played that thing for you where he could not, President Kennedy could not get a military officer fired for embarrassing him. He totally embarrassed the Kennedy family by putting Mrs. Kennedy's bed in front of TV cameras and bringing them in and taking pictures and talking all about this beautiful furniture that they acquired from a very fancy furniture store called Jordan Marsh. But if you're Kennedy, it was Jordan Marsh. I want that stuff sent back to Jordan Marsh in a truck with that captain on top. The guy was such a fool. And President Kennedy was so mortified by it. And it hurt him in terms of privacy and also the Air Force budget. Because they got to fight for every billion. Anyway, he wanted the guy fired and he couldn't get him fired. President Trump wants these prosecutions to take place. He wants other people, there has to be justice. And it's good. You want justice. Christopher Krebs, whatever happened to him? Who the hell is Christopher Krebs? He's probably the most dangerous man in America in a way. I went through the trouble of voting in 2020 and I voted for Trump. Did you? And Chris Krebs thought, no, the vote is not really all that important. Protecting democracy, his view of democracy, is more important. So Chris Krebs was the head of a thing called CISA. CISA. Why does our government even have CISA? Right? CISA. CISA. Cyber Intelligence Security Agency. CISA. Now, a lot of people have kind of correctly figured out that this is a deep state machine intended to limit democratic power, i.e. the people we voted for. CISA's in charge, actually. CISA. You need experts. You need systems. You don't need checks and balances. You need CISA. This guy actually came out right after the 2020 election and said fraudulently that the 2020 election was the most secure election we've ever had, which is an impossible thing. It's so untrue. On the surface of it, it's untrue. You can't make that. This was the election COVID. And by the way, he said it 4 days after the election. And he's weighing in on stuff he has no responsibility for. None. Zero. What do you care? It's not your job. And what do? They shaped the battlefield. Christopher Krebs, some bureaucrat you never heard of, came out and said the election was totally fine and raising questions about it. That was dangerous. Well, Christopher Krebs, I know, has been under investigation for over a year. And I'm really hoping that he gets indicted. If there is evidence that suggests that he's a criminal, and I would be shocked if there wasn't. Now, Christopher Krebs goes on the TV and says out loud all those things we were just talking about. Now, nobody remembers this because, quite frankly, it's Trump. Trump is the victim. No, Trump isn't the victim. We're all the victims. You, me, democracy, that's the victim. And it's just like, no, it doesn't matter anymore. You're gosh damn right it matters. It's just because the New York Times doesn't find this fashionable or stylish or... All right, so here's Christopher Krebs, the mutinous. He's a mutineer, for crying out loud. How he gets to walk around and be on boards and have companies and the rest. This is possibly the worst guy you never heard of. Christopher Krebs. Go ahead.
It's completely and utterly surreal. None of these lies have been substantiated to any extent. Every single one of them has been debunked.
To any extent. That's a very interesting hedge. That's a very interesting hedge. Been debunked by who? How? When? It isn't your job to just debunk that crap. Keep going.
It's been debunked.
Chris Krebs was director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, charged with protecting the 2020 election. He called it the most secure election in American history, and days later was fired by President Trump. He now has a cyber consulting firm and is a contributor for CBS News.
Oh, imagine that.
We showed him a press conference held 2 days after his firing at the headquarters of the Republican National Committee, when Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and others continued their attacks on Dominion machines and software.
It can set and run an algorithm that probably ran all over the country to take a certain percentage of votes from President Trump and flip them to President Biden.
Do you remember watching that?
Yeah, I tweeted about it immediately afterwards. I think I said something along the lines that was the most insane and dangerous 45 minutes of TV in, American history, effectively.
How secure was the 2020 election?
Let me put it this way.
Hey, stop for a second. How can a bunch of people at a microphone, how can that be dangerous? How can lawyers putting out theories, advocating for their client, be dangerous? How is that? How is that? Huh. Keep going if you don't mind.
Let me put it this way. It was the most litigated. It was the most scrutinized. It was the most audited. This election was put through the ringer from so many different directions. And what I tend to like to say is, don't listen to me. Listen to Bill Barr. Bill Barr said it. He was then the Attorney General of the United States.
This is what Bill Barr later said to the January 6th committee.
These claims on the Dominion voting machines, and they were idiotic claims. I saw absolutely zero basis for the allegations, but they were made in such a sensational way that they obviously were influencing a lot of people.
Who and how? So I'm not talking about that voting machine company, because that's the least of it. It was the illegal manner in which states allowed their citizens to vote. And for that guy to come out and say this was the most secure. It's interesting. He said it at one point, most secure. And then he changes his tune. He says it's the most scrutinized. It's the most litigated. Don't believe me. Believe Bill Barr. And guess what? That's outside of Bill Barr's purview as well. So, people are frustrated. Why is he talking about that? Why does he continue to talk about that? Well, we were all victims, but in a way, nobody was more of a victim than President Trump. And people aren't ready to see him as a victim. They just don't. They see a guy rich, famous, powerful, right? But the idea that, I don't know, all those times being thrown in jail, to me, if they can do it to him, they can do it to you and me. They tried. If you're heading into summer without a medical emergency kit, you're taking a risk. Most people don't think about it until it's too late. Summer colds linger and can turn into sinus infections that last for weeks. Getting sick right before vacation can derail everything. And when you're traveling, finding a doctor and pharmacy is stressful. So that's why I ordered a medical emergency kit. It's like having urgent care in a pharmacy right at home. It includes essential prescriptions like amoxicillin and a generic Z-Pack to treat a wide range of common and serious illnesses. So if you wake up sick at home or on the road, you already have what you need. No waiting for your doctor, no hours at urgent care, no pharmacy lines, no copays. Just match your symptoms to the right prescription in your guidebook or call their telemedicine doctor standing by. Start on your meds sooner and feel better faster. Every home needs at least one medical emergency kit. Order yours online in minutes and it's shipped to your door, and save $45 with my promo code Greg at urgentcarekit.com/Greg. That's promo code Greg at urgentcarekit.com/Greg.
Greg Kelly.
Let's go, Brandon.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Roger Stone here. Your dollars are losing ground, but gold isn't. American Sovereign Bullion helps you protect your wealth through real, tangible assets. Through their nationwide wholesaler network, you get some of the best pricing on gold and silver delivered straight to your door. Since 1912, the U.S. dollar has lost 97% of its purchasing power. Meanwhile, gold continues to prove its strength. So call 844-272-2428. That's 844-272-2428. Or visit dyingdollar.com to request your free gold and silver guide. That's dyingdollar.com.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Man, had to send an email. I feel like I'm mailing a letter. I feel like I need stamps and email. Who the hell does email anymore? Text, baby, text. Maybe DM on social media, but email. Oh, it feels like I'm sending a fax. It's just not what we do anymore. Did you guys hear about the plane that ran over somebody on the runway? Yeah, very, very gruesome. But a man just walked down on the runway and was hit by the plane. Let's see here. It's a tough thing to watch. It was a Frontier Airlines plane, ran over a trespasser at the Denver airport. Now, I've been to that Denver airport. It is the worst airport in the world, by far. I've been to airports in the third world, all throughout Africa. I mean, I've been to some, this is the worst. At one point, I couldn't get water. There was no water at the Denver airport. I mean, it was like, I couldn't believe it. I've never gone to a place where they had no water. Another place had no food. They had a restaurant with no food. I mean, like, what is wrong with you people? What's happening here? Denver. Well, part of it is they're all stoned. All right. That is part of the problem. A death on Denver airport's runway highlights the challenge of securing a facility twice the size of Manhattan. Is it that big? Twice the size of Manhattan? Well, if it's that big, it's too big. And there's a way you can secure this stuff. But somebody walked out and got run over by an airplane. And let's see if it was happening. They climbed over a fence. And some of these airports, you don't have it. Look, if you want to die, there are ways to do it. I'm not saying that I don't see this as a security breach. I see this as a very, unfortunate incident. The plane was attempting to take off. It caused a engine fire that was extinguished. Radio traffic recordings obtained reveal the chilling description from the first responders. Runway 17 left is closed. I do have limbs on the runway. I believe the aircraft struck an individual. The individual was at least partially consumed by one of the plane's engines. Yikes. Officials said 12 people were hurt and 5 were transported to a local hospital with injuries from the crash. You know what that's from? When they evacuate the jet and you go down those slides. And you're evacuating 150 people. A certain percentage will have sprained ankles and broken bones. That's actually pretty risky. I have run over, not any people, but deer, multiple deer on takeoff and landing at various airports. It's dangerous and a little bit scary.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, here we are, and you know who Monica Crowley is? She's like I can't call her an unsung hero because she's been sung. An amazing person. She is an academic. I think she has a PhD from Columbia or one of those schools, but she's always been conservative, and she was President Nixon's chief of staff during a huge chunk of his ex-presidency, his post-presidency. And she was in charge of his correspondence. She was his primary aide, sounding board. They worked very, very closely together. Monica Crowley wrote a number of books about her experience with the president. And I started reading those all the way back in the 1990s. I found them very interesting. I became friends with her later at Fox News and beyond, and she's been here to WABC many times. She is a beautiful woman, and what is she? Probably 50 or something like that. And why do I mention that? Well, the fake news prevented her from getting a really cool job in the first Trump administration. I think it was Deputy National Security Advisor, and she was falsely smeared. I can't remember the details, but it was unfair what happened to her. And I picked this up over the years, the intervening years, as he was running for president for the second time. Actually for the third time in the 2024 election. She would see President Trump from time to time and said, "I've got the perfect job for you. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's the perfect job." And she told me that, and I'm like, wow, I wonder what it is. And it turns out she is the chief protocol officer for the United States president. I think actually it's the chief protocol for the United States government. It is a major, major position. It's a lot more than just niceties and shaking hands. It is a lot of logistics. It's strategy. It is just almost everything you can think of. It is an amazingly interesting job. And yes, you get to meet a lot of important people. In fact, depending upon the status of the meeting and who's arriving, sometimes it won't be the president to greet the person getting to the White House. It'll be her, chief protocol officer. And she travels the world with President Trump anyway. She's very much by his side. And I love that this came from her. Okay, so this is a little comment that she made, and we've heard similar comments from other people, but this is Ambassador Monica Crowley, the U.S. government's chief of protocol, said the administration will soon produce evidence that proves President Trump won the 2020 election. Ms. Crowley was speaking last week at an event hosted by Breitbart News, did not reveal more about the evidence, but expressed confidence in what it would show. He did win in a landslide, and we will soon be able to give evidence about that, she said. Now, that matches comments from other high officials, including the FBI Director Kash Patel, who talked about evidence of a conspiracy to subvert the 2020 vote, which made President Joseph Biden the victor over Mr. Trump's vehement objections. Now, again, this is the Washington Times, right? This is where everybody gives himself, we got to give ourselves we got to cover ourselves here. We got to cover ourselves. This is how they write that. The claims that were raised during and immediately after the election were all rejected by courts and Congress, which confirmed Mr. Biden's victory. That statement goes a little bit too far, that line. All but confirmed. I mean, look, those 63 court cases never heard the merits of the allegations. They just said you don't have jurisdiction here. You don't have standing. You have no right to stand in our courtroom with this kind of beef. You got to go there. You got to go here. You got to go that way. And they're pointing in two directions. Federal grand jury in Florida is newly pursuing the matter. And the Justice Department has hired and deployed Joe DeGenova, a Trump ally. Remember John McCain was on the Meet the Press show more than any other guest in the show's history. Well, the guy who meets that bill with me is Joe DeGenova on my show and any show I've ever done more than any other guest. And I like all kinds of guests, but he was my go-to guy on so many things. A truth teller who was savvy, who knew the system but also rejected the system, knew the system, knew how to operate within it when he had to, but also could see it and would say that it's corrupt. and also just a believer in the Constitution, originally a Reagan appointee. Well, he is at work at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Southern Florida. Ms. Crowley suggested that Mr. Trump would have served in the previous term from 2021 to 2025, but added that it's fitting he's in office now to oversee this year's World Cup soccer extravaganza and the 2028 Olympics, both in America. Ms. Crowley, who said her job as chief protocol officer makes her America's ambassador, also teased the upcoming 250th celebration of America's independence, saying it gives the nation a chance to rally around our shared values. Events include a national prayer event, a rodeo, UFC fights, and an IndyCar race, along with a 110-foot Ferris wheel built on the National Mall. Ms. Crowley also praised the president's approach to China, noting that heading into the upcoming meeting with President Xi, Mr. Trump holds all the cards. You know, what's really interesting is that I remember the bicentennial, and the bicentennial was a bigger event than this. Why? Why would it have been so big? Why would I have been consumed as an 8-year-old with that moment in time? And this 250th, is it because of my age? I'm watching my kids. They're not hearing anything about the 250th anniversary of America. I think 250 is bigger than 200. It's more numbers than 200. Does it sound a little bit off? Is 200 bigger than 250? 250 is a pretty big number. I think 250 is a meaningful number. The only thing is, look, 100 years is centennial, 200 years is bicentennial, 250 years is semi-sesquicentennial, something like that. It's a very funky word, and so that's why we call it America 250. But I'm very excited about this. This must be revisited. This all has to be looked at again. And, you know, there's no cavalry coming. You always think someone else is going to come to the rescue. You know how Joe DeGenevo would come on the show. President Trump would listen to the show, watch the show, and he liked what Joe DeGenevo was saying. Somehow you are the change. You ever hear that? Be the change you want. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. Be the change. Go ahead and do it. Because each and every one of us, well, we're so important. We're so big. We're so significant that each person that you have ever thought about or looked at or not even looked at, anybody who ever lived, how many galaxies did they get? If we were to divvy it up equally, 2 to 3 galaxies a person, from the first caveman to the baby born 1 second ago. And how many stars are in one galaxy? Something like 250 billion on average. Hey, 250. What an interesting number. So people like Carl Sagan were wrong. Carl Sagan, you know, bit of an atheist, famously because, well, we're nothing. We're just nothing. Wrong, Carl. We're something. You got it all wrong. You got it backwards. Carl Sagan, the famous astronomer, cut 5.
Here we are like mites on a plum. And the plum is this little planet, and it goes around an insignificant local star, the sun. And that star is on the obscure outskirts of an ordinary galaxy, the Milky Way, which contains 400 billion other stars. And this galaxy is just one of something like 100 billion other galaxies.
So therefore, we're nothing. Wrong, Carl. We're something. We're big. We're big shots in this universe. And all these stars, they were made for our use. They were made for us. The same way our ancestors came from Europe to America, Christopher Columbus, celestial navigation. Well, that's how we got to the moon. We even used it again during Artemis. We used it back in Apollo. We used it again during Artemis. Sextants, little telescopes that look out the window, this time connected to a computer, but just, anyway, all of this stuff is for us. And we're each far more significant than I think we give ourselves credit for. If you don't mind, I'd like to take a moment. Marco Rubio is now, this is penetrating regular life, okay? Regular people are wondering about 2028 and who's next, and they like Marco Rubio. There's something about Marco Rubio. I personally have a hard time seeing him as president. He reminds me of my some of my cousins. You know, my cousins are the coolest guys, very successful, but they're very boyish looking. Very, very boyish. And that's how I see Marco. He's just, maybe it was President Trump, little Marco. I just don't see him as president, but I see him as one hell of an effective Secretary of State. And who knows, maybe, you know, I could be wrong. I don't care if I'm wrong. It'd be great for the country. I'm still pulling for J.D. Vance. But everybody listen to this. Cut 17, please. Cut 17.
Well, I guess, but the point is, if there's not much seizing in the firing, because we
well, you should ask that of the Iranians. Don't ask me. We didn't fire. They fired on us. My point is, if you fire at a U.S. Navy ship, what are we supposed to do? Say, oh, there's a ceasefire. We're not going to shoot down your drone. That's a stupid question. That's a stupid position to take. Of course we fired back at them. They were shooting at us. That's what I would expect to do. Only stupid countries don't shoot back when you're shot at. And we're not a stupid country.
Do you expect that or have you conveyed any red lines to Iran where, you know, if the ceasefire or whatever you call it, if they...
Well, the red line is clear. They threaten Americans, they're going to get blown up. I mean, that's how much clearer can you be than that? If you are a missile launching guy, whatever they call that job, and you're sitting there and you fire a missile at the United States and we saw you fire it, we're going to hit you. Of course we are. Who doesn't do that? Unless you want to get your ship sunk. I mean, we're not going to let our ships get sunk by the Iranians with their little, you know, their drones that they're firing. You know, they don't have a navy anymore, but they bring out these little Boston whaler fishing boats and they try to swarm you. We're going to blow those boats up if they're coming towards our boats. I don't know if that's a red line, but I hope they know it is by now. So if I were one of these Iranians on a fast boat and they tell you, hey, your mission is to go after a U.S. destroyer, you're probably not going to survive.
What's not to like? The guy's tough and common sense and speaks in plain English. Unlike our friend Gavin Newsom. Yeah, man, I know it's my pet project. I'm a little bit obsessed. But when you write a book and it reveals that you are a psychopath, right, and it's published, it's in print, and people can buy it, and reviewers review it, and they don't notice the part where he admits to being a psychopath, right, where he can go on stage after stage after stage, right, and be bathed in applause and worship and, oh my gosh, if only you're going to be the president, you're going to be the president. Me? Yeah, you think? Maybe. That I know that he's a nut job and it's all in the book. I feel privileged. I feel privileged because I wasn't the groupthink. The groupthink doesn't work on me. And by the way, did you see that man who pushed the repeat offender criminal who's smiling his ass off in court? It's just amusing to him. Repeat offender and Broadway dancer shoves a 76-year-old retired teacher down the New York City subway stairs, killing him. 32-year-old Ramal Burke was seen grinning in court after allegedly carrying out the horrific murder. Well, I see him do it right there. The victim, Ross Falzone, was a social worker for children with special needs. He was rushed to the hospital and died from a head injury. According to the Post, Burke was in court just 5 hours after the incident for a completely unrelated assault. He was able to walk free because no one recognized him. Burke has since been arrested and was smiling in court. How about that guy? How about that? Ladies and gentlemen, we knew how to do this. We knew how to run a city. We know how to run a city. Ignorant people. Zoran Mamdani, drunk on power and prestige and attention. And it sounds like this. You got my Zoran, the weirdo Zoran. I'm not going to hide from anybody, Zoran, except when the hell will he walk in this room? Oh, I'd love to see that. Go ahead.
I promise you this. If you are a New Yorker, I am your mayor. Regardless of whether we agree, I will protect you, celebrate with you, mourn alongside you, and never, not for a second, hide from you.
That's the thing right there. He is the most inaccessible mayor we've ever had. He doesn't have these daily question and answer, right? He's not doing the radio shows. He's elusive, evasive, weird, and doing things that are thoroughly and completely un-American. Quality of life is slipping out of control. They are cooking the books. They are lying to the people. The New York City Police Department is being deceptively operated. They're not coming clean. And it breaks my heart. Boy, does it break my heart. I know how good this city can be. And here we are. All right? Don't let it happen to your community. Be right back.
Greg Kelly.
Let's go, Brandon.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. It looks like Mark Kelly could be going down for something else. Mark Kelly, the radical leftist lunatic from Arizona, U.S. Senator, who somehow thinks that because he served in the Navy and went into outer space that he can do whatever the hell he wants and somehow should be beyond criticism. And but no, absolutely not. That's a nice thing you did for your resume. It's nice that you had those experiences. I don't see how I benefited, quite frankly. I mean, I'm not going to pause everything and say, oh, thank you for your service and all that stuff. No, he got a free education. He got flight pay, right? You know, when you're a pilot, they pay you extra to be the pilot because it's risky. You are paid. There's a slight mercenary aspect to all this stuff, all right? It's a volunteer army, yes. We volunteer to go in, but we don't do it for free, all right? It's not exactly selfless service. And Mark Kelly, it looks like it's going to be hard getting him on this stuff about when he was going on and on about how you have to disobey illegal orders. You have to follow the Constitution and disobey illegal orders. Now that's it's kind of clever and cute on his part. It's deceptive and weird because everything that they say is what President Trump is doing is illegal. So when you say, well, you have to disobey illegal orders, that sounds great. But wait a second. If everything the president is saying is illegal, you're putting in the troops in a very, very awkward position. And the policy is the policy and the practice and the custom and even the requirement is not that U.S. service members go around questioning the president of the United States every time he issues an order. It's not up to the troops to figure that out. There is a time and a place where you do not follow an order, but that order has to be so outrageous, so beyond the pale, that it would shock the conscience of any normal person. Anybody. Now, shooting at a drug boat doesn't do that. Shooting at women and children does that, right? Women and children, unarmed women. My Lai massacre shocks the conscience. But not this. However, it looks like he's in trouble for, spilling the beans on television. All right, this is Mark Kelly on CBS. Go ahead.
Yes, Margaret, we have. We've been tracking it. A number of times we've been briefed by the Pentagon on specific munitions. Actually, it's been pretty detailed on Tomahawks, ATACMS, SM-3s, THAAD rounds, Patriot rounds, so those interceptor rounds to defend ourselves. And the numbers are, I think it's fair to say it's shocking, how deep we have gone into these magazines, because this president got our country into this without a strategic goal, without a plan, without a timeline. And because of that, we've expended a lot of munitions. And that means the American people are less safe, whether it's a conflict in the Western Pacific with China or somewhere else in the world. The munitions are depleted. You may have seen me ask the Secretary of Defense this question about how long it's going to take to replenish. We're talking about years.
Well, Admiral Paparo, the head of U.S. Pacific Command, was recently asked in front of Congress about American readiness and whether the diversion to the Middle East was hurting it. He said he did not see any real cost on our ability to deter China. From what you have heard, when you say it's shocking, do you think that the U.S. would be able to defend, for example, Taiwan if China tries to move against it? Or are you saying we are not in a position to do that right now?
Well, it all depends on the length of a conflict. Conflict that lasts a matter of days or just weeks. I think we're well positioned to do that. If a conflict goes on for months or years, when it takes years to replenish some of these munitions, of course we're going to be in a worse posture than we otherwise would be in if this war in Iran didn't happen. And by the way, Margaret, what are the American people getting out of this? I mean, this president said he wasn't going to start.
It was the specificity, actually naming the weapon systems and the amount of time it might take to replenish. Right? Now, it's one thing if I say it based on, right, but he's a United States Senator. He just came out of that secret briefing, and he disclosed classified information. That is a federal crime right there, and maybe we'll get him on that.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?